Hey everyone, this is Derrick Broze of the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we're going to talk about sanctuary cities, but maybe not in the way you think about. But before we do that, I want to remind you guys to bookmark theconsciousresistance.com, theconsciousresistance.com. As you can see, this is our home base for all of our operations. You can come here to find our latest content. The website is pretty up to date. And you can also find our links to our social media, Minds, Steemit/DTube. Join our Discord channel if you want to get involved in the community and the chatter that goes in there where I post articles that I don't always make videos about. Also, again, highly recommend joining our text list. I've been noticing more of you joining the text list, and that's great. Just to be aware, I am going to text you maybe once a day, twice a day sometimes, a couple times a week, just letting you know that I have new content out. You don't have to respond. You don't have to be worried about it. Just check it when you get a chance to. You can also find us at BitChute, and if you want to support, do so at Patreon or Subscribestar. And sign up for our email newsletter, which is going to go out this weekend. Finally, if you want to get a free ounce of kratom or some CBD, check out My Brave Botanicals, and they will hook you up. All right, guys. So first off the bat, for those who are unaware, I am writing articles again. I'm very excited. I took most of 2019 off from writing in order to run for mayor and write a book and write a documentary. But I am back now writing articles at The Mind Unleashed, which, if you've never heard of themindunleashed.com, pretty much everybody who has survived the social media purge from the anti-media, from Mint Press News, from a bunch of other outlets, who is able to still survive, has made their way to The Mind Unleashed. So we're working with a good team of people. And as you can see, I've started to release articles. These top 4 were just released this week. These other ones you can go back and check some of my archives of older articles if you'd like. But this week I've been writing about Cambridge Analytica. I wrote about the U.S. kicking off a new DNA program. I wrote about how in the aftermath of this Iranian conflict, there's now increased surveillance in American cities, and they're starting to detain Iranian Americans and just people of Iranian descent. So that's the byproduct of war. But today, as I said, we're going to talk about sanctuary cities. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with the term sanctuary cities, it is, I think I got a definition here. Let me see. Sanctuary cities are defined as a city, county, or state that limits the cooperation with federal immigration enforcement agents in order to protect low-priority immigrants from deportation while still turning over those who have committed serious crimes. And now that idea of sanctuary cities has been expanding the past few months, but not in regards to immigration, more in relation to the Second Amendment, right to bear arms, to own weapons. And I think this is interesting. The reason I wanted to cover this because, well, these two issues, they couldn't be more far apart. I mean, there might be some people who are, for sanctuary cities on the immigration side and for Second Amendment sanctuary cities that we're about to discuss. But typically, people who are for protecting, illegal immigrants and people who haven't come here documented, those are people who are typically left-wing. Let's just, put it on the spectrum. They're typically leaning left one way or the other. And people who are typically for gun rights are more on the right-wing side of things, conservative. Now, there are exceptions, of course, but that's just, generally where we're at. So you have two different movements, two different sides of the political spectrum, but both making use of this strategy of sanctuary cities. And actually, some of you may remember that when I ran for mayor, I was calling for turning Houston into a cannabis sanctuary city because we said that effectively we were going to decriminalize cannabis and, make it where in the city limits, nobody would prosecute you for cannabis-related crimes. And that's essentially what you see with immigration sanctuary cities. But in the past year, there's been an explosion of these Second Amendment sanctuary cities. It's actually a movement, it seems like, that's growing. It's been exploding across Virginia, which is where most of the kind of conflict is brewing, and that's what we're going to discuss today. But it's also expanded to, I think Kansas has literally, every county has some form of sanctuary city measure or resolution, but it's also in California. Illinois, which is where it started, has exploded with these as well. Colorado, New Mexico, Florida. I'm surprised Texas isn't on the list, but maybe it is and I just didn't see it. Either way, though, what's going on is Virginia has recently experienced a switch. In the 2019 election, the Democrats won complete control of the state house of Virginia, which means for the first time in at least a generation, the Democrats are going to be in control in Virginia, and you have a Democratic governor, Ralph Northam, and his new Democrats have made it pretty clear that one of their goals is to push for new gun control measures. And this, of course, comes after last May's shooting in the Virginia Beach Municipal Building, which left 12 people dead and 4 others injured. So there's a shooting in Virginia Beach. Democratic politicians and even some Republicans call for universal background checks, ban on certain weapons, and of course controversial red flag laws where they can just take away your guns because you've been deemed unstable or whatever they want to say. So as that's going on, in response to that, this Second Amendment sanctuary city movement has popped up, where supporters of Second Amendment sanctuary cities are now asking local law enforcement to refuse to comply with orders from the state regarding local gun control. And in Virginia, the sanctuary city movement came as a response, again, to Democrats promising new gun laws. Most recently, Delegate Dan Helmer. This is a pretty interesting bill and kind of scary, guys, for those who say, oh, they're not trying to take anybody's weapons. I don't know. I would say, look at this bill. Delegate Dan Helmer introduced House Bill 567, which would prohibit indoor shooting ranges in any building not owned or leased by the Commonwealth of Virginia or the federal government. Think about that. They're trying to prohibit legal gun owners from being able to go to indoor gun ranges unless they're owned by the government. I mean, that seems pretty, I don't know, it just doesn't seem like a good thing to go put those things in the control of the government. Now, there are exemptions. If you own a gun range and you want to be exempt from this, you would need to have fewer than 50 employees working in your building, or 90% of your users who come to the gun range must be law enforcement employees. So again, take away the ability for people to use guns and to exercise and practice with them and to actually become proficient in using the weapons that they have, and instead make it where only law enforcement and government have access to these things. Not only that, but the bill would also require users who come to these gun ranges, the few that might be able to survive if this passes, to present a government photo ID, and ranges have to maintain a log of each user's name, phone number, address, and if they're law enforcement, which agency they're a part of. And if passed, this bill could lead to the closing of a number of indoor shooting ranges across the state, with government and law enforcement employees being the only legal users of indoor ranges. Now that's pretty crazy if I ever seen something like that. This battle is being led by the Virginia Citizens Defense League. In Virginia, they've been introducing resolutions that declare that local officials will oppose any, quote, unconstitutional restrictions on the Second Amendment. So far, 86 of Virginia's 95 counties have passed sanctuary city measures. I mean, by far the vast majority of them. So that leaves about less than 10 who haven't done this. And in late December, Attorney General Mark Herring issued an opinion statement saying that the resolutions are part of an effort of the gun lobby to stoke fear, and he claims that they will have no legal effect. Even further, Democratic Virginia Representative Donald McEachin told the Washington Examiner that Governor Northam could cut off state funds to local governments if they refuse to comply, and could call in the National Guard to enforce the laws. So first they're saying, fine, you don't want to enforce our gun laws? Well, that funding that you're dependent on, which is the problem, this is why it's problematic for a local body to be dependent on the state or the federal government, because they can hold this money over your head and say, okay, well, if you don't play ball the way we want, we're going to take this away from you. And most of them will comply. And this idea that they would call in the National Guard, it's pretty scary. Although Governor Northam has said he has no plans to call in the National Guard, the statement made by this Democratic Virginia representative has already caused backlash. And this is pretty interesting. I found this, did some digging around and found this, and I don't think you're going to see this reported anywhere else, guys, so please make sure to share this. On December 30th, Virginia Delegate Dave LaRock sent a letter to Governor Northam asking him to de-escalate the situation after LaRock received a letter from Michaela Claywell, a Virginian and wife of an active-duty Virginia guardsman. She told LaRock that she's witnessed threats of violence being made against guardsmen on social media. So you basically have a Virginia government employee writing the governor saying, your statements about taking people's guns are now causing active-duty National Guardsmen's wives to send me letters saying that they're afraid, that they're receiving death threats. The social media threats come as a direct response to the notion that National Guardsmen would be called upon to enforce gun laws that are being proposed in the 2020 session. Ms. Claywell and a number of wives of high-level officers are calling on the governor and other state officials to calm the situation. She wrote, "Please use your collective influence to protect our soldiers and our families." And while Virginia is trying to figure out how to deal with this, like I said, this is growing elsewhere. It started in Effingham County, Illinois in April 2018. They were apparently the first ones to do it. David Campbell, who's a member of the Effingham County Board, said, "It all started right there, and then it just blossomed. I think we're into 15 states now. I get calls constantly from other states and from other counties wanting a copy of our resolution and a map of how we did it." So far, 70 of Illinois' 102 counties have passed some form of Second Amendment sanctuary cities, and as I mentioned, it's spreading elsewhere. So, two questions I'm putting to you, the listener, the viewer. What do you think about this idea? If you like guns, you probably support this, but what do you think about it being applied to immigration? You might not like that. What do you think about it being applied to cannabis? For me, as somebody who is a believer in decentralization, as an anarchist, and as somebody who wants to shrink the government down as small as possible, I think this is the answer. Communities need to look different. What you like in New York City or in Virginia doesn't necessarily apply to what we want in Houston, and even in Houston doesn't, we're not all going to agree about these things, but my point is that when we localize and we decentralize and we get away from this gigantic idea of one size fits all system, we can move to a place where things are more free and where some cities might want to let immigrants come without papers. Some people might want to protect gun rights. It's all about preferences on the individual local level. So I hope you guys will share this out. Again, this is on the Mind Unleashed. It's called Sanctuary Cities, a battle over the Second Amendment is unfolding across America. And just bookmark the Mind Unleashed as well. You can, like I showed you guys, you can go here to my author page, Derrick Broze, and see all of my past articles for the Mind Unleashed. I've been doing some work for a while, but now I'm back at it. I'm going to be writing Monday through Friday for the Mind Unleashed. And I won't always necessarily do a video on these articles like I'm doing today, which is, again, another reason to sign up for our text list. Because if you are on the text list, you're going to get a text every time I release a new article, every time I release a new video. Otherwise, you might miss some of my work, which means you might miss some important information, which means you might not be able to share it with your friends and family and keep waking up people. Because I'm determined more than ever, guys, even though I have been a little bit less than optimistic, let's say, recently, I'm determined more than ever to use every resource I have to keep reaching people and keep getting people thinking. And it's difficult. There are a lot of difficult things out there, and there's a lot of people who are propagandized. But I know that together, when we work together, we are capable of reaching so many people. But you have to share. Use social media for what it is designed for. Share it. Don't just consume this and then go about your day. Hit the share button, hit the like button, subscribe, go to that article on the Mind Unleashed, share it out there on your social media feeds, show it to some friends and family, have a conversation about this, communicate. Otherwise, the world's going to go to shit and we're only going to have ourselves to blame because we didn't make an effort to actually communicate. And I know some of you say, man, I've talked to everybody I know, I talked to all my friends and family. They think I'm crazy. That might be true. Print out a flyer. Put DVDs, burn DVDs with documentaries on them, or USB drives with documentaries on them. Go to your farmer's market or your local community center or wherever the busy place is in your town, and try to talk to people. You will find other people like yourself. They might just not be in your immediate circle. You might have to step out of your comfort zone, but if you care about changing the world for the better, then you're going to have to do that. We're going to leave it there for now, guys. I want to remind you one more time that we are running our crowdfunding campaign. There's only 2 days left. 2 days left in this campaign. If you want to invest in the 5G Trojan Horse documentary, first of all, thank you to everybody who has donated, invested. We're at $1,300, 69% of our $2,000 goal. We've got 19 contributors. I bet there's a few of you out there who could help us reach 2,000 and maybe go past 2,000. If you want to contribute, please consider doing so. The links are in the description below. And until next time, guys, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.